I was born in a country where anything was possible. We celebrated simple freedoms to live and to love.
Marry me.
But there have always been those who would try to take our freedom.
Ukraine must be taught to bow to our will. Without its vast harvests of grain, Russia cannot exist. Take all their food.
This would mean the death of millions.
Who in the world will know?
They're coming. Bolsheviks.
Your land all belong to the state.
I have seen people left
To die. This is not a famine. This is starvation. I must fight for my country.
Resistance is strong and spreading.
Close the borders, keep them in.
We must save ourselves or die.
Know that I'll always be yours.
Trust me, I will make it home to you.
How many lives is this war worth?
If I can save one life, that's enough for me.
We must continue the resistance.
Freedom to Ukraine!
Having someone to live for gives me courage. We will be together again.
Congratulations on this film. It's sort of a historical undertaking, not just because the film is about a historical moment, but because this story really hasn't been told at all, and it was sort of just unleashed upon the world in 1991 in the fall of the Soviet Union, right?
Well, that was what was so unnerving and fascinating about this story when we met our director and he explained about the Holodomor. And that basically, over the course of 2 years in Ukraine, Europe's second largest country, between 2.5 and 7.5 million people were killed. And that news, for various reasons, mainly because of Soviet enforcement over the media, that news didn't escape. To the extent that really very few people that I know who would call themselves educated and informed had no idea about this. And I think as actors, when you have the opportunity to be involved in a film like this that can maybe teach somebody a thing or two and cue them to look into something further, that's a wonderful thing to be involved in.
And also teach you a thing or two as well. You don't know that much about this going into it, and you get to suddenly engage on or embark upon a kind of research project as well, not just learning about your characters, but learning about this moment in history, right?
Absolutely. I mean, I felt absolutely ashamed that I didn't know about the Holodomor. I didn't know anything about it. And then I spoke to friends and family who also hadn't heard about it, which is just so incredibly shocking considering what happened. And so that was definitely a real draw to this movie because it's such an important story to be told, and it's incredibly sad that the world doesn't know about it.
I have to ask, what was it like?
I actually knew all about it, sorry.
What was it like shooting this movie and also releasing it now? I mean, it has parallels to what is happening right now, and that there isn't a famine happening or like a starvation happening because of Russian oppression of Ukraine. But Russia has annexed Crimea, and they are moving into Ukraine. What is it like to sort of be making this film that has parallels, and history seems like it may be repeating itself?
When we was there, if you remember, guys, we had to actually evacuate because it all started happening while we was there. Just at the end of the movie, sort of, the Russians started coming in and causing a problem in Kiev, and there was all the blockades and the riots and everything. So it's kind of repeating itself again.
This is a Ukrainian co-production, right?
Yeah. Our chief financier is a Ukrainian, and our director is Ukrainian, and a large percentage of our cast and all of our crew were also Ukrainian, which is a wonderful thing because, as I'm sure you all know, as actors, you mainly find yourself in studios, or if not, filming in the country that has nothing to do with the production you're making. But in this case, we found ourselves in Ukraine, in historically accurate locations, working with a crew who, not firsthand, but whose parents and grandparents would have been directly affected by what we were talking about. So there was a wonderful well-meaning intention behind the whole production.
And I would also imagine what was happening in the moment there was also informing how you felt and were depicting the history as well.
Yeah, I mean, what happened in Ukraine, I think it was Timoshenko and Yanukovych. I mean, this is Ukraine's problem, sort of. It's stuck between two powerful influences, between the EU and Russia. And as a result of that fact, for hundreds and hundreds of years, there have been attempts by either side to dilute Ukraine's national identity. And as a result, the Ukraine we see today is divided ethnically, religiously, linguistically, economically, in every which way possible. And means that it's vulnerable to abuse. And it as a country, it was known famously as the breadbasket of Europe because it was so bountiful. But natural resources, oil and gas, iron, and because of that, it's always been fought over, and it's the people of Ukraine who finally pay the check at the end of the night. Yeah.
So talk about getting involved in the film. How did this project come to you? Either one, whoever wants to field that question.
Well, it actually, I was with Camilla, I was a producer on the job as well, and when it came, George approached me first to play the role, Sergei Koltsov. And again, you know, going back to what the guys were saying before, when we was researching these characters, and mine was a real-life character, when you research and see exactly the extent of the misery, and the Holodomor actually means death or murder by starvation, which is probably the worst way you could ever go over a period of 10 years, and what happened there was horrific. But I got approached to play this character, I looked at it. The script was kind of all right at the start, wasn't it? We kind of got there in the end, finally, and it was a film that took us 4 years to make. 4 years. I mean, it's the longest journey I've ever had on a movie. I'm sure the guys will agree, but...
Shooting over the course of 4 years, or do you mean pre-production?
Well, we started production in 2014, am I right in saying that? Was it the beginning of 2014? Went and shot on location in Kiev, and then we had to come back and do reshoots in the UK in Pinewood Studios. But the extent of the editing side of this movie was very, very difficult because it's a love story set within a historical tragedy. So ideally we have to make it into a movie which people can watch, but this one's quite special in the sense where you have love stories within a true story or a historical tragedy, you kind of tend to focus on the love journey. But with this one, it's quite fascinating when you're watching it, and even though we was in it and we was the filmmakers, when you start seeing what's peppered around these two beautiful people's journey, you kind of start looking at it and thinking, wow, is this what happened? And it's when we say it's a must-see movie, it's not because who's in it or who stars. I mean, you know, Barry Pepper, these guys, the great Terence Stamp, these people in it and did an amazing job. It's a must-see movie in the sense where it's a story that we believe needs to be told. And, you know, you hear about Hitler, you hear about all these tragedies. And for me, you know, we heard about Stalin. What I knew of Stalin is, you know, there's things that people say, it's up to 60 million people he's murdered over the course of time. And when you look at it and you see it, you kind of think, yeah, Stalin the horrible, what did he do? And I'm sure you guys will agree. You'll hear about Stalin and, yeah, Stalin the horrible, what did he do? But with the movie, when I say it's a must-see movie, is because it's an educational thing. We believe that it's a story that should be told.
Talk about setting a love story within this historical tragedy, why it's important to not just focus on the tragedy, but also focus on sort of love, for lack of a better word, I'm going to sound very cliche right now, love that blossoms within tragedy and how that keeps people going.
I think that our characters, Natalka and Yuri, their story is sort of based on a lot of stories that we heard that people actually went through. People who survived to people who didn't, from people's parents and grandparents. So I think that it felt very, very real because these were real stories. I think that the love and the strength of love within a desperate situation where you feel completely helpless is a powerful message. It certainly, for my character Natalka, is what gets her through. It gets her through day to day, and it helps her survive. And not just for Yuri, but for her family. And she has to sort of step up and sort of sacrifice herself for her loved ones, which I think is an incredibly brave thing to do. And I think when I watch movies, I like to sort of look at the brave sort of heroine and think, oh, I'd love to be that. I'd love to be that. That's what you'd like to think you'd be in this desperate situation, but you just don't know how you would react. And these were just really normal people who had, loves and families, and this horrible thing happened to them. And it's incredible to see the lengths people went to try and get out of this situation.
And he hid it as well. It was, sorry, Max. Stalin was actually paying the Associated Press millions to keep it quiet. So there's that element in the movie as well, where, this murder or starvation or famine, whatever everyone wants to call it, it went on for 10 years, and the world didn't even know about it. And I think you were saying 1991, was it, that it sort of come to the forefront, and now countries are starting to accept it as a genocide and they're now accepting it actually happened.
Max, what were you going to say?
Oh, fuck.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, it's good, it's good.
Sorry.
It's coming to me.
I totally did that too.
Did I swear?
We're live, we're
You
live.
swear.
Are we on the internet? We're on the internet, fine.
You're
okay.
more than welcome to curse.
Okay.
I'm telling your mum.
Literally, I've forgotten what I was saying. With love stories, I think we're all a bit funny about love stories when you see them injected into historical dramas, because it's so often done to give a little more bang for your buck and to keep audiences engaged. But when you do your research on something like this, on the Holodomor, or what happened in Germany in the mid-century, and indeed any painful period in history, you see that love as a human characteristic is something that when the shit hits the fan, when the chips are down, pushes people to survive that bit longer, or to walk that extra mile, or to hold on that little bit tighter. And when we, as I mentioned,
it's also universal as well, where the specifics of politics, be they for the sake of a righteous historical rebellion, is not necessarily as universal as sort of love between two people.
Absolutely, that's essential human nature. And when I mentioned earlier, we managed to speak. We're fortunate to speak to people who've been directly affected, and usually the stories they would come back with had to do with those interpersonal connections, whether it be loved ones or family. So, I don't know. I tried to be less cynical when looking at the love story.
When we did actually screen it. I think it was in the UK or the Ukraine somewhere, and there was two people there that were sort of nearly in their hundreds that sort of caught the back end of it and actually lived and survived it. And even when they watched it, I mean, the character I played, Sergei Koltsov, who was, a very wicked, he's everything from a paedophile, rapist, a mass murderer, he's the Antichrist. They walked out of it, floods of tears, streaming in tears, and saying it's exactly how it was. So, it was true to form. Going back to the love story, what these guys were talking about, it was very true. Apart from all the stuff that my character's doing around this love story, this misery that he's driving within there, they were like, this is how it was. We was just in love, and we just wanted to survive and live, and we had to fight through love and loyalty and committing to one another, and the Cossacks did fight back. They did everything in their power to stop this from happening, but that's where we're at with it, right?
I have to ask, when you take on a role like Sergei, who, as you said, is all of these things that fall under the definition of evil, probably, but at the same time, you're representing a sort of a system and a structure that allowed that evil to flourish, not just within him, but amongst many. And then there was also just the normal side of those people, where brutality had become normalized, and it was kind of part of their job to do that for the state. How do you go about your character? How much do you want to sort of show that he's evil, and how much do you want to show that he's actually a human who?
Well,
not to say that Sergei deserves that kind of.
No. I always play the villain, and I played a London, New York, whatever villain in my sleep. too ugly to get a romantic lead, as you can see, right? But with taking on a role like this, especially when you're shooting on location in Kiev, where it was all air and underneath your feet, and I don't want to sort of go into this whole spiritual sort of crazy thing about what we're doing, but when I first got given the role and the character, and I always said to the director, I said, listen, for some reason, something's telling me that I want at some stage somebody to feel sorry for this man. Through all of what he's doing, none of us were born murderers. You know, I'm a great believer you're a product of your environment, or, you know, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, or because this character, he gave his own mother up in the church and watched his mother get executed. So from him growing up, obviously there must have been, because for me it's always about a backstory before you can create a character, but it was lucky that this character was there and it was real. But there was always a minute in there that I wanted, and I found it, and you'll probably see it when you watch the movie. I found a moment where I said to George, our director, I said, I want to find a moment where people will actually, even if it's a split second, feel sorry for him.
Or see what he's afraid of.
Yeah.
What makes him actually be human.
Yeah, he's terrified of himself. You know, as I said before, I mean, there's horrific scenes between my character and Sam's character, and even when you see the hallucinations, and look, he wants to be loved. He can't find love. And again, even around that character, you know, he's just killing unconditionally. There's obviously something within him that's making him that way. And that was the biggest challenge for me, you know, to get into his soul and get into his being and his psyche. Why the hell are you doing this? You know, a villain, when you watch a Hollywood villain, if he's got a boss, you know, it's easy. He wants to be the boss. Stalin was that person, because you know, he probably killed the one before him. Right? Do you see what I'm saying? You know, he had that drive, and then that, for me, that was what the challenge was. You know, and he had so many arcs and so many twists and turns, but within him, there's always got to be something there that, why is he doing this? And hopefully, you know, I found that within the character, and that was a challenging thing for me.
Let's open it up to the audience for questions. Who has questions? Right here.
Hey guys, so I guess for each of you, when shooting this film, was there something that you guys got to take away with you in a historical context or as your characters?
It was very educational for us, as we said from the start, but for my character, it's exactly what I just said to you guys before, to take that away as an actor and away from the film and the tragedy and the historical part of it as an actor, it really did educate me and bring my sort of ability to another level within my career.
You guys?
Yeah, of course. You know, I learned so much about the Ukraine, about the culture, and about the history, and the very sad history. But as an actress, the script is so demanding. There's so many intense sort of scenes, especially with Tamer. But she really does go through some intense highs and lows. So as an actress, that's sort of a dream to get to have such a challenge. And it's just an incredibly special movie and a special moment of my life, I think. So yeah, lots of things.
And hopefully we're giving everyone a gift, right? A gift of education, as one would say.
We have this thing in England at the minute, and I don't want to speak for America, but certainly in the case in England, this sort of demonization of refugees, and it's fucking horrible. And what these people are going through, these people are refugees, and immigrant refugees, these are just words, but what you see is actually they're just trying their best to survive, to live, to keep their children breathing, you know, and that we must remember this, as opposed to only looking at what makes us different. That we all, when everything's stripped away, have the same set of priorities, and we do the same things.
And that was something that was a sort of a part of what you were feeling while you were making the film, or was it sort of after the film you had this experience that was sort of informing your feelings about sort of anti-refugee, anti-immigrant rhetoric? And
When I was there, I was just thinking it was cold. It was very, very
Cold.
No,
Cold.
it was so cold.
Cold.
Like minus 20, minus 30. This is nuts.
Did that experiment where they threw hot water up in the air and it lands as ice?
No health and safety.
That
Nobody cared.
happened.
It's
That
just stand out in the
happened.
snow for
Yeah.
It was
hours.
like minus 10 or 12, wasn't it, at one stage?
Worse.
And when we came back, we needed the snow, didn't we? So
Yeah.
it kind of worked for us, yeah.
It was very unreasonable.
But Terence Stamp kept us all occupied with his stories about tantric sex, which was wonderful.
And we'll hear more on that.
I'll let you know later.
Next question, right here.
Hey guys, congrats on the movie.
Thank you.
My question's for Samantha. In addition to being an amazing actress, you're also a singer. We saw you in Les Mis a couple years ago, and most recently in Emily. I was just wondering, do you have a preference, one over the other? Do you identify as an actor who sings or a singer who acts?
I think when I'm doing both or when I'm doing either, that's the one I choose. So when I'm on stage, I'm like, this is the best thing ever. Or do you ever want to do anything else? And when I'm filming, I have the same feeling. Because I think that in theatre, you have such an instant connection with an audience, and that buzz is just amazing. You can't sleep for hours, and it's like electricity like flowing through you. But with filming, it's just incredibly special, especially with, say, a film like this, to be so in the moment and for it to be so intimate and so real. To be creating a story and it not having to be heightened because, you know, everybody in a theatre needs to see it. So I miss the other when I do the other, and I just love them both. I feel lucky I get to do them both, but I could not pick, definitely not.
I'd rather be a singer.
You've got the voice for it.
There you go, the Barry White approach.
You could do like a Johnny Cash, you know.
Barry White, baby.
Barry White.
I think we have time for one more question right here.
Hi. This seems to be a film that requires a lot of emotional depth. So I was wondering, as actors, how is it getting out of character? Do you just leave the plot and the emotions on set, or do you carry them with you?
Shave your hair off. I shaved the hair off. I had to shave it off. Boom, gone. See you later.
Okay.
I think it's
Leave it,
impossible to leave that completely. You can, but I think for me, I have to try because otherwise you wouldn't sleep. So I think it's incredibly hard to when the subject matter is what it was. It's kind of impossible to just leave that because it plays on your mind. But I think for me, I have to try and do everything I can to step away so I can step back in the next morning for another intense day.
Can't take it home with you. I'm one of these actors, quite funny, because I'm untrained and I kind of found my own way, and every day is a school day for me on set. But I'm one of these characters, you go on set and sometimes you have people that stay in character. But I'm, luckily enough, one of these actors that, as soon as he calls cut, so I can go from, hello, how are you? Are you well? Some of you die painfully and profusely, and do this whole RP thing. Then go, all right, mate, what's happening? Is that coffee for me? Gaffer goes, action, and boom, and jump straight back into it. But you do have to leave it there. You can't take it away because your loved ones will get affected by it, won't they?
Well, yeah, and it's lucky that he is like that because we had some horrible scenes together. So if he had continued with that nastiness, we wouldn't have become friends. So that's really lucky he can snap.
I call that perks of the job, darling.
Next. Poor thing. You get caught up in everybody else.
No, I'm sorry.
He was thinking about the rape scene. That's what he was doing.
I always have that thing, you know, when you're sort of umming and ahhing and stressing out about how to get it right, and then it only becomes clear on the ride home. You're like, oh shit, that's how I should have done it. That's my whole.
When it's always too late.
Always
you watch
too
it, go,
late.
I could have done that better.
Exactly.
It's being self-critical, I think, isn't it?
Well, guys, I don't think you could have done it better. The film is fantastic. Congratulations. How can people see it? When can people see it?
25th of this month.
February 25th of this month it's in theaters.
Premieres tonight here. It's in theatres. 22. Yeah, how many? Cam? 2,800. How many? We've got about 57 million screens globally and in space. Get out and watch it.
Bitter Harvest, you guys. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so
Congratulations.
much.